Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. Actually, this is the second session of Tech Sales Advice this week, so you get two for the price of one. Of course, my name is Chris White. I am your host, and this is the live show, the LinkedIn live show for technical sales professionals and technical sales leaders. And folks, as a reminder, these conversations are live. This is not pre-recorded, and as I like to say, they are by design, unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. And I am delighted to welcome this week's guest. As you can plainly see, she just lights up the screen with her smile, and you're about to see her personality and her attitude. Her name is Melissa Madian. Now, she is a self-proclaimed CFO, Chief Fabulous Officer. She also is the author of a book called Enabler, I Hardly Know Her, which I can attest is a fabulous read. As you can see, I've just about gotten all the way through with all my dog ear pages. She also happens to be a colleague of mine. Many of you know that I am affiliated with Aslan Training and Development, and she's one of my fellow instructors with Aslan. Melissa, I think I've run out of things to say. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I know you've literally got to go and do a workshop in an hour. So I know we have limited time. By the way, we already have our first hello from Kayuri Yagnik. Actually, Kayuri has also been a guest on the show. She's dialing in from Atlanta, and she is a huge fan and a proponent of enablement as well. So, Melissa, you are a sales enablement professional. Yes. And that's what we're going to dive into. Let's, if it's okay, I'm gonna pull a few things out of your book.
Sure.
And the first chapter is entitled, I think it's the first chapter, maybe after the welcome. What the heck is sales enablement? So let's start there. What the heck is sales enablement?
Yeah, it's so funny because, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It is still a topic of debate because nobody can quite nail down what it is. But from my perspective, sales enablement is process, tools, training to get the revenue generating functions to close more business faster while also creating a great customer experience. So if you think about the full customer life cycle, you're trying to acquire customers, you're trying to keep them, and you're trying to grow them. And enablement plays in all of those areas to basically just keep this customer life cycle moving so that the folks that are in front of these customers don't say or do something silly in front of the customer. That's essentially enablement.
And by the way, the subtitle of your book is How to Make the Sales Experience Not Suck. So that's in essence, I think what you're saying in a very polite way. Now in your book, you shared of a very early experience in your career where this was front and center for you. I think maybe you had gotten a job opportunity with a friend of your father's or something, and he attempted to give you. Do you care to just share a little bit of that story as sort of the backdrop?
Yeah, so I was in university, and this was a summer job at a university. My dad was kind enough to call up his friend who had a tech sales company, actually. And he's like, well, I need what you would call now an SDR, somebody to just dial through a phone book and call people to try and get leads. So essentially my first sales job was an SDR. And I got there, and this is quite a while ago. So I'm going to say like the 90s. This is when this was. Yeah. And I basically joined. He sort of gave me a tour of the office. There's a factory in the back, gave me a tour of that, sat me down. He's like, here's your desk. There's your phone. Here's a tech sales phone book. Just dial through, and here's a stack of product brochures. Dial through this phone book until you get people to say that, yes, I'm interested in talking to a salesperson. And then on this, he had like a pink book and that was the lead book. And I would have to write down the name of the lead, tear off the pink slip, and go over to the salesperson and give them that lead. That was essentially my first job as an SDR. Yeah. And it sucked.
Cold.
Loved him. He was great.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was what you did. That basically, you just gave a salesperson a stack of product brochures, you gave them a phone book, and you told them to call through it.
Yeah.
And not much has changed.
And what was, as I was reading your book, you said that you started learning some very important lessons early on from that experience. What were some of the lessons you learned early on from that experience?
Yeah, one that the experience sucked. Like it still sucks to be an SDR, I will say, but that just being thrown into the deep end and
Yeah.
not knowing, okay, I understand the product, like I understand this is a nozzle that sprays paint on a car bumper. I get what it does,
Right.
but how am I supposed to like call some random person who doesn't know anything about me and try and convince them to buy this nozzle when
Not
they
the spray nozzle. Right.
yeah, like why how would I do that? So I learned very quickly, and actually he was a great sales mentor as we kind of got into it, where he's like it's about them, like make it about them. And that was one of the things on the positive side, because the negative side was very obvious, but on the positive side he's like make it about them and what do they care about and what is core to them, their core problem, their core belief, their core challenge. And if you make it about them right out of the gate, you set yourself apart from everybody else.
Mhm.
And I've kind of taken that with me throughout my entire career. Like if I just make it about the customer or the buyer, already I'm ahead of everybody else that's trying to sell stuff out there.
So powerful. And Melissa, there's something that I forgot to mention in introducing you, and I want to make sure we weave this in as well. Do I understand correctly that you actually have a background in engineering, that you actually you studied engineering in
Yep.
university, and once upon a time on your journey, you too were a sales engineer. I'm
Yes.
correct in that, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
and I think as engineers, it's sometimes even more difficult to quote make it about our customer because we're, it's sort of like the curse of knowledge, right? Because we're experts, we understand that, that we probably have insights that they don't. We love to speak tech and talk through the details. How did you learn for yourself to avoid focusing so much on your technical expertise and turn it around and make it more about the customer?
yeah, it's I think it's a great point, Chris. Like we're so knowledgeable in everything that we do. So yes, I graduated University of Toronto, mechanical engineer. I don't have my iron ring on right now because doesn't fit me anymore. um, and I actually fell into sales engineering right out of university. I got a job at a process control company as a sales engineer, and you learn like the first thing they teach you is like you learn all the things. You learn the product inside and out. You learn all the ways it works. As an engineer, you're like I'm curious and I'm tactile and I want to get in there and learn things and discover all these great things about it. And then later in my career, when I moved into software, I actually built and ran a sales engineering team for a great tech startup in Canada called Eloqua, who since been grown and bought by Oracle and all that sort of and was sold out and everything. Um, and what I found was like you're right, like we're as engineers and as solutions engineers or sales engineers, we're highly technical, but we're problem solvers too.
Mm,
So when you hear a customer problem, the instinct is, oh, we can solve that. Yay,
right.
we can solve that. So you talk about all the things like, oh my God, all the things that we can solve this, and this is great, and blah, like blah, all over the customer about how awesome the product is. And I learned pretty early on that customers are just like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's way too complicated. Like that's so much stuff. I don't need all the things. I just need like this one thing over here. So I learned pretty quickly that like, oh, I can't just show up and be excited about my product because they don't care. Like really, customer doesn't care about you. They care about what's in it for them. So I started to realize like, okay, if I change the focus and think about what how does this product or solution or whatever it is I'm selling, how does this fit into their world and start to put it into
Mm,
context for them. And then they start to light up and get excited because now they see how the product, the solution, the platform, whatever it is that you're
mm.
demoing or talking about, how it fits into context for them. So it's that kind of I told my sales engineers when I were in the team, you have to sort of slow down, take a step back,
Mm.
and really think about from the perspective of the customer, how is this going to fit into their world, and then paint the picture that way.
Oh. So well said. But by the way, Kieri mentioned, love that you highlighted WIFM. What's in it for
Yeah.
me? 100%. By the way, folks, we don't see who's out there. So if you do care to say hello, or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And Kieri, thanks for getting that started. Melissa, there's something in your book. And anybody who's spent any time with me or listening to me knows that I love analogies. You have now given me one of my favorite new analogies, and this is how I'm going to invite you to introduce the analogy. Is one of the things in chapter 3, it says, "What am I selling?" So that's an important part, obviously, an important part of being successful in sales is understanding what it is that I'm selling. May I invite you to share the analogy that you use to describe how we need to understand that?
The what's on the truck, is that the one you're talking
What's
about?
on the truck?
Yeah, so the analogy I use for anyone who's selling things, and then anyone who's trying to enable people who are selling things, it's as someone who is revenue generating that has to position products and solutions. Basically, they need to know what is on the truck to sell. So if you think about a produce truck, I'm a farmer. I load up my produce truck with all my produce, and I go to the farmer's market. And I open up my door and I start loading up onto my little farmer's market table. And like that week, I have strawberries and I have oranges. So first off, when you're enabling a team, you have to let them know you're selling strawberries and oranges. We don't have grapefruits. Like, don't sell. Why are you selling? Don't sell grapefruits. So that's one. And then two, it's not only do they need to know that they have strawberries and oranges on the truck that week, they need to know, okay, talking about the rind of the orange, and this is where sales engineers fall into the trap, talking about how orange the rind is and how thick the pith is and how many seeds the orange has. Customers not going to care. They're like, I as a customer, I just don't want scurvy. That's what I'm trying to solve. Like, my problem is I don't want scurvy. So is your orange going to solve my problem of not having scurvy? And so, especially as technical sellers, we have to take a step back and go, okay, what's the problem the customer's trying to solve? So they don't want scurvy. All right, I'm going to look on my truck and see, oh, my oranges can solve for scurvy. So I am going to let them know that, hey, we've got oranges. You got a scurvy problem. We've got oranges that can solve for that scurvy problem. Let's talk about how many oranges you need, and because how scurvy are you and how many oranges do you need. So it's all about, the analogy is like what's on the truck, and only position what's on the truck and how what's on the truck is going to solve for problems that the customer has.
Amen. And here's why I love this analogy so much, because first of all, we do need to understand what's on the truck. And for some, for some sales professionals of highly technical products, they have a hard time even articulating what's on the truck, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
So that is an important step. But to your point, the other mistake is we over rotate, and all we can do is talk about what's on the truck. And customers don't usually care all that much just about what's on the truck. To your point, they care about, well, how can what you have on your truck help me? And if so, in what way? So then the next thing you talk about, and again, I just love, here's another thing that I love about your book. And I was saying this to you off air. The irony is that in spite of the fact that I'm an author, I'm actually not the biggest reader in the world. So when I wrote my book, I wrote it in such a way, hopefully, that it was easy to read. I found your book to be the same. And one of the ways it is that just about every chapter is a question, which instantly invites me to start asking myself, I'm not sure I can answer that. So the third chapter is, what am I selling? The next is, to whom am I selling? Let's talk about why it's so important to understand to whom it is that you are selling. And as we like to say in Aslan speak, to whom we are serving.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't know who your target buyer is and what they care about and what their world is like, it's going to be really hard to position anything. And this kind of goes back to, like, I also have marketing experience as well. And a lot of marketers are just like, well, I'm just going to put a generic message out there and hopefully someone gets it and then responds back. And it's like, well, that's a really that's sort of a spray and pray approach. Like, okay, prayer's great, but it's not really going to solve what you're trying to accomplish here. So, and same with demos too. Oh my gosh, like it would drive me crazy when reps would come to my SEs and ask, like, I just give them the harbor tour, just like give
Right,
them the
right.
general, yeah, the
Just show them what we usually show them.
show 'em what we usually show them. And it's like, okay, if I don't understand to whom this target demo is going to like how am I supposed to tailor this conversation?
Right.
We're just having this like very generic conversation, so it's really important to understand not just like the ideal customer profile, which is important, but what do they care about? Like what's important to them? What kind of challenges do they have? What's their daily world look like? So that again, it's all about context. It's what's going to be in context for that target persona, so that when you do step in front of them, they go, oh, this Melissa really understands my world and what I'm trying to accomplish, and I feel like I can now partner with this person. It's just like, and I mean, you're familiar with the Aslan stuff that we facilitate. It's about becoming that trusted partner for them, and you
Right.
can't do that if you don't know to whom you're selling.
Yeah. As our colleague Tom Stanfill likes to say, study the people you're serving.
Yeah.
What's on their whiteboard? What's on the decision maker's whiteboard? Right. If we're not talking about something that relates to something that's on their whiteboard, they likely are not going to care.
Yeah.
So 100%. Now, the next couple of things you talk about are how do I sell?
Mm.
So let's break that down a little bit. And I'm going to invite you to share from the perspective of a sales enablement professional, how do we help the people that we serve, which are the sellers, the go-to-market team, whether it's BDR, the account executives, the sales engineers, how do we help them better approach a sales conversation, the sales life cycle, et cetera? How do we help them with the how?
Yeah. The how is really where the rubber meets the road for enablement, because now you're talking about mechanics and behaviors that you're trying to impart on the sales team or on the revenue generating team. I don't often like saying sales team because that's not as all encompassing as like revenue generating, right? You know, your sales
Mm,
engineers are part of the revenue generating team. Your customer success team might be generating revenue in your current
100%.
customer base. So it's like the revenue team as a whole,
Yeah.
your SDRs, et cetera, et cetera. But to get back to what I was talking about, so now there's behaviors you want the sellers and the people who are generating revenue to exhibit. So that would be things like, are you the mechanics? So are you entering things into your CRM effectively? Are you capturing information in the right way? Are you moving your deal through each step? Are you demoing the things you should be demoing? Are you, trying to
Mm,
customize like all the mechanics of the deals?
yeah.
Enablement can really help with that, because enablement can take a look and go, okay, we need to standardize a process and behaviors and make sure that we're monitoring and measuring each of our revenue generating folks on those behaviors. And then there's skills. So the how has a lot to do with skills. So do I have a break in anybody's skills as we go through the process? So,
Mm,
do my SEs have really great demo skills, or are they just showing up and dumping information on the audience? Are they telling effective stories? Are my sellers exhibiting skills that make them great sellers? That's where training comes into play, things like Aslan and corporate visions, etc. So the how really enablement can help, because the enablement team can take a look at, all right, how is everybody doing? What's performance look like? What are the behaviors we want to make sure all these folks have? And then how can we roll out programs to assist at each of those stages?
yeah. How would you describe, you mentioned behaviors and skills. And
Mhm.
I've had people ask me, in fact, well, how do you differentiate? How would you respond to that question? What is the difference between behaviors and skills from your vantage point?
Yeah. So behaviors is, are they doing the things that as a corporate culture we need them to do for for the purposes of moving a deal from start to finish. So things like, are they using the CRM effectively? Are they like that? That's what I would consider behaviors. Like, are
That's a
you fitting?
behavior. Yep.
Yeah, that's behavior. Skills are, can I deliver a great presentation?
Yeah.
Am I effective in my negotiation skills? Can I do discovery really well? Do I have great timbre in my voice and tone and all that kind of stuff? Like all the
Right.
sort of things that you can teach,
Right.
fall under things that are observable that you can teach are sort of in that skills bucket. There is a little bit of overlap between the two. So I
Mhm.
sort of view skills and behaviors kind of go hand in hand. But behaviors to me is like, what is my manager holding me accountable to? That would be kind of your
Mm.
behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about an enablement program. And you may recall this from an earlier conversation. I spent about a year and a half in a pure enablement role, and I learned that sales enablement can be a thankless job
Yep.
because, to your point, everyone, and when I say everyone, the sales leaders, the people that we serve internally, they typically have a very different opinion about what sales enablement is or is not.
Yep.
It seems as though, and as a result, they frequently want different things. Oftentimes, they ask for certain things, and then we deliver it, and either it's not enough, or it's too much, or they come back to us and say, well, you're asking my people to attend too many training sessions, and I can't. So let's talk about how do sales enablement professionals balance all of these demands and expectations.
Yeah. So I always go back to whom are you serving? And you're serving your revenue generating teams. And the whole purpose of enablement is to assist them in closing more business faster while also creating great experience. So what you should be thinking about as an enablement professional is, if everything that I'm doing and everything that I'm being asked to do, is this serving that function? Am I serving
Mm,
these folks with that function? So then you're kind of empowered to go, all right, if the purpose is to serve, I know that there are certain points in time that I should not be doing anything because the team is focused on close of business. So I always tell my clients that I work with, don't schedule programs in the last couple of weeks of the quarter,
without a
because
doubt.
like that's not serving them. You can be there to assist them in any coaching and be there to help, but you shouldn't be doing anything like that. The other thing too is you have to think about, how long does it take to develop a skill or behavior or knowledge? And what I see happen in a lot of enablement organizations is they'll try and cram all of the things. It's like, okay, we have all these things that we have to cover. So let's just, every week, let's run a different training course or a different enablement program. And that's not enough time for behaviors and skills to kind of take effect. The analogy I use in my book is, it's like learning an instrument. You can't just pick up an instrument and go nuts. Like you have to start slow and have repetition and have practice and stuff. So I'm usually like one big program a quarter, and then
Mm.
like if there's like informational things, you can have like little things along the way. So in enablement, it starts to become like a project management role almost, because you've got all of these programs that you have to run. You have to be very considerate about timing. You have to intake information from the field because, again, you're serving them. So they make requests to you. And then you have to manage any inbound requests that come from other departments. So it's kind of part part project manager and part and I use this analogy in the book, part bouncer at a club. Like you're trying to manage the flow of information that gets in front of the team, because you don't want too much to come in because then it's ineffective, but you also don't want an empty club. So you need to just manage that flow.
But and by the way, I'm glad you reminded me of that. I absolutely loved that analogy, and I'm going to double click on it for our listeners. So your analogy was, as a sales enablement leader, you're basically the bouncer at the club, and you decide who gets, in essence, into the club, access to the club, meaning access to the revenue generating team, to spend time with them, either teaching, training, instructing, delivering content, whatever that might be, right?
Yep.
Absolutely love that. By the way, and Kiari, I appreciate your comments and questions. She has asked, would love to hear what led you to move to enablement from pre-sales role. SEs are always looking for a career path. Kiari, thank you for the question. Do you care to tackle that, Melissa?
Sure. I fell into it really. So I was running the sales engineering team at Eloqua, and so Eloqua is a marketing automation platform that has since been purchased by Oracle. And at the time, demand generation and marketing automation was very new. But so Eloqua, we were leaders in the space because we were the only ones there, and then competition started coming in. And competition was, we're everything that they do, but we're cheaper, we're faster, we're easy to use. And so the sales team was losing on that exact thing. So I, being head of the sales engineers, because I know the product inside and out, and I'd been with the company for a while, I'm like, you can't be losing on this. Like, this makes no sense. So I stepped in and I'm like, let me just start to help these folks figure out how to sell this product effectively. And that's kind of how I fell into enablement. And that one thing led to a few other programs. And then that few other programs led to a few other things. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do both enablement and serve as the leader of the sales and engineering organization. So I need to make a choice. Which one do I choose? And I chose enablement. And I'm happy I did, because I upskilled one of my up and coming sales engineers to lead the team, and he was amazing and he crushed it as a sales engineering leader. And I'm very happy being enablement, obviously, because I made a career out of it. So that's how it happened.
Yeah. I think there are a number of sales engineer, either individual contributors and or managers who find themselves in your situation, which is, because we understand the technology, we understand the positioning, we understand the value proposition, we tend to understand the customer and the problems that we solve. I do, and we understand ideally the sales process, the sales approach. I do think it positions us and equips us very well to move into a sales enablement role. That was certainly my story as well. So Kiari,
Yeah.
great question. And Melissa, you're a case study on making that progression.
Yeah.
There's another thought that comes to mind for me, and that is, when I was running sales enablement, I remember one event in particular. I went to a wedding. Maybe it was the 50th birthday party. It was the 50th birthday party of a gentleman who I was at. That's why I was thinking it was wedding. I was the best man at his wedding, but I attended his 50th birthday party. And this is a number of years ago. Clearly, stating how old I am, which is not my intent in the least. But I was seated at the table with some other couples, and my wife and I, and there was a couple gentlemen there who were in sales. And at the time, I was running sales enablement. And when I told them that I ran sales enablement for this high-tech company, they sort of rolled their eyes at me. And I felt like I lost a lot of respect from them, or that they lost respect for me when they heard that I was sales enablement, not a sales professional. Why is that? And what can we as sales enablement professionals do to change that perception?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, bad enablement out there, which it sounds negative. It is negative, but
it's just truth, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's truth. And I think part of it is because nobody really knows what enablement is. So there's a lot of weird definitions out there. Like, if you're talking to a software platform that sells like content management solutions, they will often position themselves as a sales enablement platform. Is it? It's a content enablement platform, but is it really a sales enablement platform? So there's a little bit of gray area there. And then there are a lot of folks that fell into enablement that really don't know what to do. So they just think that enablement is, I need to churn out training, and I need to toss training in there, and they're very reactive versus proactive. Really, if enablement wants to up their game and set themselves as a strategic partner, you got to act that way. So, I tell my clients all the time, you need to elevate the role of enablement within your organization. The sales team will appreciate you if you're not just, chucking programs at them and going, "Hey, how come you clowns haven't done my programs?" Which is usually where the negative side comes from, right? It's like, "Hey, I generate all this interest and you're not doing anything." It's like, "Oh, let's work, I'm serving you." So my whole goal is to get you to close more business faster. So how are we going to do that? And stepping back strategically and going, "Okay, let me take a look at how they're all performing." And actually see, like, oh, there's a break in the process here. Let's dive into that break in the process. Oh, it's because, the skills aren't all that great. Let's look at skills. And then you can position it as, hey, this enablement program is to address this break in the process where we see that deals are falling into a black hole. That's why this enablement is out there, and actually start to paint the why these programs are happening. And that starts to elevate enablement from these guys again with another training program to, oh, these folks actually care about me closing business. That's amazing. They're actually a strategic partner.
Yeah. How important is it for sales enablement professionals to have sales experience in their background?
So there's a lot of debate about this on the socials, and there's a lot of hard opinions about you can be an enablement professional and not have been in sales. I am of the opinion, this is my opinion, so don't all at me on this. I actually think you have to understand the role in order to enable the role. So, in my opinion, the best way to do that is to actually walk a mile in the person's shoes and actually do the role. So, I have been a seller and I've been an SDR and I've been an SE, so I get what their day-to-day looks like. Can you do that without actually have done the role? Maybe. So if you can, that's great. I don't think a lot of humans can do that. So that's why my opinion is I think you should have done the role in order to, plus there's a bit of street cred too. Like if you're a sales enablement
100%.
professional and you've carried a bag before, or you've been an SE before, or you've been an SDR before, it lends a lot more credibility that, hey, this person's done this job, so they get where I'm coming from. So from a pure street cred perspective, I'm of the opinion that you should have done the role. So my too long don't read answer, don't read answer is I really do think the person should have been in the role in order to be a great enablement professional. But there can be argument on that.
So you and I are in the same camp. You and I are in the same camp on that.
Yeah.
I tend to agree as well. Incidentally, we had it just says LinkedIn user, so we don't actually know who this was. Whoever chimed in said that they were they and another SE basically created an enablement, I guess, platform or did some enablement for the teams and ended up SE MVP. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
That's usually how it happens. Like someone just goes, ugh, like nobody's doing anything about it. I'm just going to do something about it.
Yeah. Definitely something SEs can do to help their teams grow. And Melissa, building on both of these thoughts about SEs evolving or progressing into a sales enablement role, and then the importance of having been in a sales role, I will admit, and I run my own business. I've been running my own business for a little over 5 years, and before then, I was an account executive with within the same space, but the truth is I didn't really know what it meant to be a sales professional until I launched my own business. And I don't feel as though, as I reflect back on the time when I was a sales enablement professional, I don't think I had as much appreciation for some of the challenges as I do now. And I think in hindsight, that would have made me a better sales enablement professional. So, it's just, and by the way, that was William Hapner who chimed in. William, thanks for chiming in. Good to see you. I know we're going to be wrapping up here in about 10 minutes because we got to let you go and clear your mind and change gears so you can actually go and run one of the training programs that we run. So
I can go make money.
you got to go earn a living.
I got to go earn a living.
One of the perceptions that I have of enablement. In fact, I created this sort of, and it's not entirely unlike some of the frameworks that you have in your book, which, by the way, folks, if you're just joining, Melissa wrote a book called Enabler. I hardly know her. If you've never heard of it, you have now. If you haven't read it, I'm going to encourage you to do so. Don't walk, run to your nearest bookstore or computer where you can dial up Amazon and get a copy. It's a fabulous read. It's an easy read, and I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Thank you.
When I think of enablement, I have these 5 pillars: knowledge, the stuff that people need to know; skills, the skills required to do with the things that they know; collateral, so that's the use cases and the artifacts and the right, and then process and tools, so that you were talking about CRM and life cycles and all that. And then there's sort of the overarching, what I would call program management, right? Is that an effective way to think about enablement from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to start to organize your thoughts around enablement. Like, it's basically I mean, I in the book I talk about like what's on the truck, to whom I'm selling. So I think of it in terms of action. What do I got to do? Who do I got to do it with? And what are the behaviors I'm doing it with? But yeah, that's essentially it. You've got process, you've got tools, you've got any skills and behaviors and training. There's content associated with it. What content either needs to go to the team or out customer facing, because there's a lot of stuff in enablement that you have to kind of partner up with marketing and product marketing to get to the sales team so that they then send that in front of prospective customers and stuff like that too. So it's sort of all the other thing, which kind of reminds me, there's also an element of enablement that is managing relationships with other departments that are potentially producing things that sales needs. So things like product marketing is a great example. Like, I back when I first did enablement, had a great relationship with my product marketing person, because that person's generating content that the sales team not only needs to know, but then needs to execute out to prospective buyers. And there needs to be a translation from, okay, here's the thing. Now, sales team, here's how you go use it. So there's a lot of that as well.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. From my experience, and honestly, I'm the one who made some of these mistakes, and certainly some of the mistakes that I've seen other people make in this role is twofold. Number one, their perception of enablement is too narrow. In other words, they think of it just in terms of building and delivering collateral, or just in terms of making sure that they know everything they need to know about what's on the truck, or they focus too much on they think of it as just training skills, whereas or more like sales ops, operations, and or processes and tools, right? Whereas in reality, it's all of those things. It's managing all of those things. The second mistake that they make is they try to do it all themselves, or they think that they are responsible for all the content, all the delivery, and to your point, you have to leverage product marketing. You have to leverage even some of the sales leaders, or some of the more senior sales folks, or even sales engineers, as we've talked about. So
absolutely,
I think that's such a great perspective. Yeah.
And especially since a lot of sales enablement, they don't have budget to hire people. Like, it's sort of an afterthought. You either have to go beg for budget to hire somebody. So it quite often, especially smaller SaaS startups, it's usually an enablement team of one. You can't do all the things. And also, you don't necessarily have the skills to do all the things. Like, I am not a content creator. I am not at all a content creator, and I'm certainly not an instructional designer. So, I know that, and so I am going to go to other folks in my organization to assist with that, again, with the goal of this is not for me and just to make a program. This is a program to get the sales team to close more business faster. Like that's
Amen.
the goal. They need to close more business, they need to drive revenue, and they need to do it so that they create a great customer experience so that those customers come back and buy more.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so I have two final questions. The first
Sure.
is, as you well know, my audience is largely the technical sales professionals, sales engineers, sales engineer leaders. How does the game change, the enablement game change if we're targeting sales engineers versus, say, account executives?
Yeah. So it's again, how does their day-to-day operate? So think of enablement in terms of, for this sales engineer, what does their day-to-day look like and where do they need the most support? So, if they're brand new into an org, you probably need to spin them up on the use cases, the business challenges, the product, all those sort of good things. But then it's also, are there skills that that are different than the sales team? And also, are there skills that are the same as the sales team? So what I usually see happen is, whatever we're doing for sales, for the account execs, we'll just chuck it over to the SEs, and then we'll like throw some more product training at them. And it's like, okay, well, that's great, but there's also a set of skills and behaviors and process that is different for SEs than the sales team. So are you doing things for the SEs around telling an effective demo story, really thinking about the challenges that the buyer has and wrapping a good demo story around that challenge? Are you just showing up, even things like, what are you showing on screen if you're doing like a physical demo? Like, what are you showing on screen? And are you making it too overwhelming? Like all those things that you don't do with an account executive, those are the kind of things that you need to think about. What's the handoff between sales and your account exec and the SE, et cetera?
Amen.
So yeah.
Well, and unexpectedly and without intention, you literally just described why I have a business and what I do, which is
Yeah.
just that. I mean, so many organizations that I work with, they just like you said, they take the sales training that they give for their sellers and sort of throw it over the fence, and then they add some product training, but there's nothing very specific for the sales engineer. So
Yeah.
that's where I come in. So in a very similar context, the last thing I wanted to do is invite you to talk a little bit about yourself and your business and what
Yes.
what is it that you do for organizations so that people who have listened to this understand who you are and how you might be able to help them.
Yeah, so I'm going to use an analogy since I know you love
I
analogies. So
do.
the analogy I use for my business is, um, let's say you as a business want to lose 25 pounds by June. And so you go to me and go, Melissa, I want to lose 25 pounds by June. What do I got to do? So I come in, I take a look at your training schedule, your exercises, your equipment, your makeup of your gym, your current state of physicality, the things you like, and then give you a plan to say, okay, you want to lose 25 pounds by June? Here's what you got to do. You got to change this, you got to do this, you got to keep this, and you have to follow this process, and you got to involve these people in order to get there. So I'm basically like a personal trainer. But instead of losing 25 pounds by June, it's how do I make my sales team more effective and generate revenue so that we create a really strong revenue engine that also creates great customer experience. And that's basically what people bring me in to do.
Again, absolutely love that. And you're right. I do love analogies, and in the training that you and I both deliver for other companies, we call these word pictures. You've just given us a great word picture to help us understand. So Melissa, I know you're incredibly busy. I know you've got to run and do a workshop. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris.
Any final words in closing as we wrap things up?
I'll say it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, to chat with you and to share my experiences with everyone who is on the LinkedIn. And feel free to buy my book if you like. And thank you for the endorsement.
Yes, indeed. Well, again, you can see I'm not making this up. I've read it. I love it. It's great. Melissa, you're just a pleasure to talk with. Your face and your smile just literally lights up the camera. It's been a pleasure. For those of you who hung around, thank you so much for being here. Kiyuri and William and some of the others that shared some thoughts and comments. Thank you so much. If you like these conversations, you can follow hashtag Tech Sales Advice. Otherwise, I'll be back next week for another Tech Sales Advice. Thanks, folks.
Thank you so much,
Have a
Chris.
good week. Bye, all.
Bye, everyone.